In the year King Uzziah died, I saw the Lord, high and exalted, seated on a throne, and the train of his robe filled the temple. Above him were seraphim, each with 6 wings. With 2 wings they covered their faces, with 2 they covered their feet, and with 2 they were flying. And they were calling out to one another, Holy, holy, holy is the Lord Almighty. The whole earth is full of his glory. At the sound of their voices, the doorposts and thresholds shook, and the temple was filled with smoke. Woe is me, I cried. I am ruined, for I am a man of unclean lips, and I live among a people of unclean lips, and my eyes have seen the King, the Lord Almighty. Then one of the seraphim flew to me with a live coal in his hand, which he had taken with tongs from the altar. With it he touched my mouth and said, See, this has touched your lips. Your guilt is taken away, and your sin atoned for. Then I heard the voice of the Lord saying, Whom shall I send, and who will go for us? And I said, Here am I, send me. Something about reciting Isaiah 6, 1-8 gets me really teary-eyed. For one, I think it is very interesting that we as believers, understandably, tend to prioritize memorizing verses and chapters of the Bible that remind us about favor, prosperity, and things like that, and God's power to provide for and protect us. Chapters of this sort, like Isaiah 6, are just not the chapters that we tend to go for, understandably, and I am in the same boat as well. Providentially, though, I came across Isaiah 6 by way of R.C. Sproul's sermon, Holy, 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 and another sermon by John Piper, In the Throne Room, the God of Holiness and Hope. I was listening to R.C. Sproul's sermon, and John Piper's sermon was the next one on the queue, so I essentially ended up listening to both of them back to back. Suffice to say that after listening to both sermons, I literally went to my Bible app and memorized Isaiah 6, 1-8, and I've been reciting it basically every day ever since. And Isaiah 6 is just one of those chapters that has so many nuggets of wisdom and hope that we tend to miss out on because we don't necessarily go for chapters of this sort, right? Isaiah 6 to me is a very powerful and moving portrayal of God and brings to fore a number of his attributes that are very important and encouraging to remember. Verse 1 alludes to the fact that God is eternal. In the year King Uzziah died, I saw the Lord, high and exalted, seated on a throne. King Uzziah was by many accounts, if not all accounts, a very powerful and respected king, yet when he died, God was still alive, wasn't slumbering or sleeping, and was still on his throne. In a very majestic way too, if I should add. So God is eternal. Now, the following 2 verses about the seraphim are actually very revealing about 2 other attributes of God, his thoughtfulness and holiness. Something R.C. Sproul said in his sermon, Holy, 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 really stood out to me. And I believe John Piper may have made a similar point. But the point is that God is so thoughtful that he intentionally designs creatures to thrive in their respective environments. Humans, for example, have lungs that allow them to thrive and exist on land. We know that fish have gills, so they're able to exist and live in water. In fact, some fish are designed for salt water, others are designed for fresh water. And in the same way, the seraphim were intentionally and thoughtfully designed to thrive in the presence of God. The verse 2 talks about how the seraphim had 6 wings. With 2 wings they covered their faces, with 2 they covered their feet, and with 2 they were flying. God was so thoughtful, knowing that the seraphim were going to abide and live in his presence all the days of their life, and he designed them to be able to exist in the presence of a thrice holy God. And from what we see in the Bible there, they literally have to always cover their faces and feet because of God's holiness, and he provided for them to be able to survive in that kind of holy environment. Now, verse 3 reminds us that God is not just holy, but he is holy, holy, holy. We know from the Bible, right, that God is love, God is just, God has so many other great attributes, but his holiness is the only one that is described in this way. God is holy, holy, holy. In R.C. Sproul's words, perhaps John Piper also said this, God is a thrice holy God. And verse 3 just really reminds us about the holiness of the God that we serve. And verse 5 also kind of alludes to God's holiness as well. When Isaiah said, "Woe is me, for I am ruined. I am a man of unclean lips, and I live among a people of unclean lips, and my eyes have seen the King." Isaiah was a righteous man, and many people in his time knew that about him. But even in the presence of God, his righteousness felt like filthy rags. And this just reminds us, humbles me in a way, because I'm reminded of the fact that despite the fact that I may be trying my best to live right by God and to do what the Bible commands, my righteousness really is insufficient without the help of God and what Jesus Christ did for us on the cross, because no matter how good we present to be, we're just not enough. And Isaiah's lamentation there was a great reminder of that. Now, God's love was very much on display in verses 6 and 7 when he made for a way for one of the seraphim to fly to Isaiah with a live coal in his hand and to cleanse Isaiah's lips after Isaiah had cried out about his unrighteousness, so to speak. So God is very loving and good in that way. Now, verses 8, pretty much the capstone of it all, was where Isaiah responded to God and said, "Here am I, send me." And this verse is just a reminder, an incredible reminder of the free will that we have in God to either live for him and voluntarily offer our lives to be used for his glory or not. And Isaiah pretty much wanted the former, right, to be used by God. And as I read verse 8 and I close my recitation in verse 8, I am reminded and moved to make that my posture every day. Here am I, send me. So an all around great chapter, honestly. So I hope this video encourages you to reflect on Isaiah 6, perhaps even memorize it, right? I hope you found the video helpful. If you did, feel free to share it with others who may similarly find it helpful. I would actually like to know in the comments if you've read Isaiah 6, if you've memorized it before, or if you have other favorite chapters of the Bible that you've memorized that are not the common ones that we tend to hear about. All right, I will see you all next time, God willing. Bye.